This episode of the Fight Within podcast is presented to you by Meguiar's. For over 115 years, Meguiar's has been carefully creating and producing advanced formulas with cutting-edge chemistry to deliver a show car perfect appearance. Whether you're showing on the fairway, finalizing your car for auction, or simply getting your beloved car ready for a weekend drive, Meguiar's is ready to help with their premium car care products to make every automotive surface look its absolute best. Meguiar's, reflect your passion. Make sure to visit them at meguiars.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fight Within podcast. Today's honorary guest is the one and only Manny Lara. Thanks for letting me interview you.
Yeah, man.
Manny and I were talking, and he's always been the one that's doing the interviewing. So we figured, why not interview him a little bit today? And again, our goal is, to try to get people to know who we are and, know what we like, don't like. So if you want to send us gifts or whatever the case may be, you know what's up. But on a serious note, I feel like there's a couple different avenues we can pursue. So first, I want to start off with, honestly, tell us why you wanted to do the Fight Within podcast.
So originally, thanks for having me, Ben. Honestly, a lot of inspiration was not knowing what to do after I got done fighting, but knowing that I wanted to do something in that realm. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I spoke to different people about it. Once we kind of came up with the name, and I'd written down, at least 15 to 20 names. Kind of fell into this one by mixing a couple different names together, and I wanted to do it because I love people. And I love helping people. As best as I can. I felt like I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, so I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just like I don't know. We haven't really solidified it as a slogan, but part of the motto has always been to be a platform for our guests, but a resource for our listeners.
Yeah.
And so I just want to help people, man. I want to help people. I feel like a lot of people get it specifically in fighting. They get to see you under the lights, but they don't get to see the training camp. They don't get to see the behind the scenes, and that's where kind of the idea came from. And I always tell my wife, I said, I've been good at two things: athletics and running my mouth. So my athletic career is over. I got to try to get paid for running my mouth. And a big inspiration, honestly, was Brennan Schaub. Knowing that he was training with us, and he was in the gym when he started the Fighter and the Kid. And so, to see that there's a fighter that kind of took it to that next level and is now making a living podcasting was really inspiring. And he's a big motivation. Another one was obviously Rogan and Tim Ferriss, and there's a ton of podcasters out there, but really like Rogan and Brennan Schaub. And it's funny because I have a completely different style that they do.
Yeah.
But it was just neat to see that someone in the industry had a successful career or made it a career.
Yeah. No, that's rad. Well, you said there was a couple different names that you had written down, and kind of the Fight Within became kind of a combination. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and if you don't know, Manny was a professional fighter for Bellator. Mm-hmm. Do you remember some of the other names you were toying around with and how you kind of landed at the Fight Within? I think that's probably a pretty cool backstory.
I remember wanting to originally I wanted it to be about fighting.
Okay.
So I was like, and then I was like, I don't want to be another, ESPN or some fight network. I don't want to do that. And so to answer your question, I don't remember.
Okay.
I will take a screenshot of the names and we'll put it up on our Instagram.
That'd be cool.
But I don't remember the different names. Some of them are probably really silly, but they led to this, and so
yeah. Well, I mean, so for me, is I have a cool and unique perspective on it because I, have known you for a while. Uh-huh. You asked me to be a guest on the podcast. This was like a year ago now, if not a little longer.
In the very beginning.
Yeah. And full circle complete, but it was like I've wanted to do a podcast, but I just never wanted to do something on my own. I'm tired of doing things on my own, and I've never been a fighter. I love the sport. I love the discipline that martial arts takes. I love what it can teach you. I love that. It's funny because like the common perspective of MMA is like, oh, it's a brutal sport. It's grotesque, and it's like, well, those people don't understand like the art and the sweet science behind it. And that's, I'm just a fan of MMA. I'm a fan of martial arts. And so like the Fight Within is a really cool name and a really unique perspective because, whether you wanted to focus on fighting solely or to kind of morph into what it is now is like everyone's got to fight, right? And for you were literally fighting. So that's a pretty cool like transition and perspective. Like I like listening to Joe Rogan. I haven't really listened to the other one. What is it called? The Fighter and the Kid?
Fighter and the Kid. It's more entertainment based.
Okay. I've listened to like bits and pieces. Like you said, you have a totally different style than the both of them.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that's one of the things that obviously drew me into your podcast. So now we know a little bit of the why of the Fight Within. Tell us a little bit more about how you kind of came up and decided you wanted to become a fighter, and what that kind of transitioned to. Well, because I knew, you played football in high school.
Yeah.
So kind of just give us that little bit of backstory, how you got to that process.
Well, in high school, football was my first love, other than my wife, because we're high school sweethearts.
Oh, that's so cool.
I really thought I was going to go to the NFL. Like, even in high school, I was like, man, I'm going to go to the league. Like, I worked so hard, and everyone had kind of put these or instilled this confidence in you to go and pursue the things you want. Mm-hmm. That kind of didn't happen. We had our son right out of high school, which was a huge blessing. I think I was headed down the wrong path, if you will. It's kind of, drinking and partying and doing what I wanted out of high school. And I was always a fan. Well, to backtrack even more, I grew up in LA for the first 12 years of my life, in Huntington Park specifically. And my whole life, I kind of grew up fighting. I don't know why. There's something inside of me, like I'd fight friends for fun. And we were never like, I hate you, I'm mad at you. It was like, oh, we fought, cool, let's go play handball. Like it was really weird, but I blame my grandfather. Both of my parents are from Mexico. So we would go down when we were little. And one time we went to Chihuahua, Mexico. My parents would be mad if I said that. And so we went down there, and the culture was just very different. If an older gentleman would tell you to come here, you would say, yes, sir, and you would go over there. And I remember one time we were playing on a skateboard. We didn't know how to ride the skateboards, but we were kind of just playing in the driveway. I was going up and down and up and down, and I remember a kid, one of the neighbor kids, taking the skateboard from my little brother, and started running. He's running. My grandfather is sitting outside watching us, and he tells the kid, "Come here." The kid did not run away. Kid came over, and my grandfather just asked him, "Why? Why'd you take the skateboard?" He goes, "Oh, well, I don't have one, and I want one." So he goes, "Okay." So he called me up. They call me Alex. My name's Manuel Alexander Lara, but my dad's name is also Manuel Lara. But they call me Alex because of my middle name. And so my grandfather goes, "Alex, you're gonna fight this kid. Whoever wins gets the skateboard." And I'm like, "What?" So and I must have been probably 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I just remember like fighting for my family. Like I attributed that to like, oh, I got to fight for my family. Never being like thinking I'm like a hard ass or anything like that. Just like, oh, I'm gonna fight, sure, whatever. It was fun to me. Fighting was always fun. I didn't know how to fight. Yeah. But I just fought. My dad grew up watching, Julio Cesar Chavez, and I grew up liking Chavez, but also was a big fan of Oscar de la Hoya. So I grew up liking these guys, and it's funny because I liked Vargas too, and they like hated each other. Yeah. But I loved Fernando Vargas and Oscar de la Hoya and Tito Trinidad, and that whole era, Sugar Shane, that whole era of boxing was awesome to me. Floyd Mayweather, obviously, too, and then my late boxing coach, Gennaro Hernandez. I remember watching him when I was little because he was from L.A., and so it was like a big deal when him and Oscar fought.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I grew up fighting, and then at 12 years old, we moved to Orange County.
Which is so random.
And it was my dad's a bus driver.
Okay.
And so he had a route that would come over here. It was like the only route in LA that would drive over
here
to deep into Orange County. It was Rancho Santa Margarita. And at the time, it was just getting built. Okay. And a certain areas, certain neighborhoods were just getting built. Our house happened to be one of them. And we moved. And I swear to you, I kid you not, I grew up around black people and Mexican people, and that's all I saw my whole life.
Yeah.
I saw white people on TV. And so when I moved here, it was a completely different story. I was a minority now.
Yeah.
And so kids would call me a beaner or a wetback and Mexican and go back to Mexico, and automatically I'd fight.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of getting in trouble, and I was always fighting, and I'd tell my dad why, and he'd be like, well, fighting's not good, but, I'm glad that you stood up for yourself.
Yeah.
And so, growing up like that, eventually I got really big-headed. And I was like, oh, I'm badass, I can fight. and it just wasn't true, because my very first training session, I was to kind of skip around a little bit. Grew up fighting, got in trouble, got expelled at one point my freshman year for fighting. Yeah, it sucked, but it was great because I went to school like once a week. But yeah, no, I got in trouble, and then after my short-lived community college football career was over, I started working for a company called Iceman RX, and it was Chuck Liddell's company. It was a pre- and post-workout pill. So they used to have an MMA event, so the International Mixed Martial Arts Expo event in Long Beach, and so we went out to Long Beach. We bought a booth, and right next to us was a company by the name of Vandal Eyewear. They were a Hawaiian-based sunglass company, but they sponsored BJ Penn. So I got to meet BJ, and this was in 2007, 2008. And I got to at the height of his career when he was just unstoppable.
Killing, yeah.
And then I decided to walk around. I told the guy I was working the booth with, I go, hey man, I was a big fan of MMA, and I go, hey, I want to go try to get some pictures and maybe some autographs with these guys. And I remember John Fitch being there, and Josh Barnett, and Affliction, and it was about to happen, and all these pretty big name fighters, and as I'm walking around, I happen to run into this guy, this fight promoter, and he goes, hey, do you fight? And I go, no, not legally. Why? What's up? And we just started talking. We started talking, and he ended up he was a graduate from Trabuco Hills High School, where I went. Heck? Yeah, it was not back in the day, but yeah, he graduated from there, and he goes, you know what, man, I'm gonna give you 4 tickets to my event. I go, oh, cool. So I call 3 of my buddies up. I go, man, I got tickets from the owner. This is gonna be so cool. Let's go. And we show up. It was at Long Beach City College. It was Long Beach Fight Night, and we go, and I go up to the front. Well, man, we're in such good seats, and it was nosebleeds. And I'm like, oh man, I got these from the owner, and he gave me nosebleed seats. But I remember watching, I think at the time they might have had a 205er. I know they had 185 for sure. And I remember thinking, even from up there, I go, if I just train a little bit, I know I can beat these guys. I don't know what it was, but growing up fighting, I knew that I wanted to do it, and I like to challenge myself, and I'm stubborn. So I did, found a trainer and a gym, and 2-3 months later, I took my first pro fight and decided to fight, and I fought for that same organization. 2
to 3 months.
Yeah.
Actual training.
Of actual going to a gym and not even that, because 2 or 3 weeks of it was we were training at one of our friends' front lawn.
So you had basically a month and a half of legit training.
Going to the gym and training, which at War Dance with Big Will.
Yeah, which is crazy. What the heck? We got to get him on here.
Yeah, we got to get Big Will.
We got to get him on here, because he'll be like, what the heck?
Oh, yeah, it's nuts, man.
So 2-ish months of actual training, get into your first fight. How did that go?
Nuts. it went crazy because I was fighting this Samoan guy, and he was making his pro debut. Well, I'd actually called the promoter asking for a fight for a buddy of mine.
Okay.
It was an old friend of mine, and I remember like not wanting to be his manager, but like trying to look for a fight for him.
Yeah.
And then I go, if there happens to be a heavyweight fight, like I'd do it. Like, let me know. I'd love to compete. And he called me back and he goes, hey, you know, I have a fight for your buddy at 205. I go, oh, okay, cool. I was like, there's no way I can make 205, so give it to him. Then he called me back like a week later, and he goes, hey, I found a guy for you if you're willing to. I was like, yeah. I go, for sure. Like, give me a fight. And I didn't know, but there's a whole process to get like your license, and to get your pro license. And as I was training, I had no clue that you had to get medicals. You had to go get your eyes checked out. You had to get an EKG.
Dang.
You had to get your brain scanned. You had to get a physical. I mean, a ton of things, right? There's a guy by the name of Dr. Gluckman up in San Pedro that kind of specializes in that. And you do everything in one day. So all your medical, that way you don't have to go to different appointments.
Yeah.
And like Manny Pacquiao goes there.
That's crazy.
And you know, all the names go because you're done in 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and so I go and do that. But as I'm getting ready for the fight, the promoter calls me and he goes, hey, you have to come get licensed. Okay, what does that mean? What do you get licensed? Like, if we're just going to fight, you sign a contract, you're done. He goes, no, the California State Athletic Commission has to evaluate you.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And so one round is like you're hitting the bag. The next round you spar, you do jiu-jitsu, you roll around, and then the third round you spar with a teammate. And if you don't have a teammate, you just spar with someone there. So at the time, I didn't know, like, oh, in sparring, you kind of hold back or you punch as hard as you want to get punched back.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of those principles. But I had my buddy with me because he was making his pro debut too. So he goes, just make me look good. I'll make you look good. And that's it. So we end up getting our license. We fight. I'm the very first fight on the card. Very first fight. There isn't even an undercard, I guess. But I'm like the first fight. And I go and fight, and I just remember it was the first and only time I've ever felt my brain like rattle inside. Yeah. Like for every punch that he was hitting me with, I was throwing 2 or 3 back, and the whole fight was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm now watching tape. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do remember in the second round, he hits me with like a 1-2, and my hands just fall. And I'm like frozen. I'm like out on my feet. Yeah. And then he hits me again, and I wake up and instinctually just throw back. Yeah. And it was hard. I remember in the second round, and these were only 3-minute rounds. Oh, they weren't 5-minute rounds. They were 3-minute rounds. Okay. But I remember it took forever. I was like, man, this is taking so long. Going into the third round, I'm sitting in my corner, and this was in a ring. I just remember sitting in the corner, just dead tired. Yeah. Like I probably had an adrenaline dump. I was physically tired. My conditioning wasn't there. And I just vividly remember like smelling blood and thinking to myself, like, why are you doing this? like, what made you do this? Yeah. Not before the fight. Most guys get it before the fight. In the middle of the fight, I'm like, bro, like, what are you doing? It's not even so worth it. We could just leave. And I remember he hit me right at the beginning of the third round. He hit me, and I was like, this is why. And like I got that feeling again of like, you know, like last week we were talking to Devin, and she was like, oh, you don't think I could do it? Yeah. Like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I got that same feeling, like that same type of motivation. Yeah, like he hit me, and I was like, yes, bam. And the third round was nuts. I ended up winning by decision, and then kind of fueled the rest of my career. What was neat, I think I only walked out with $75 that night. Goodness gracious. But what was neat is that my coach at the time goes, and it wasn't Big Will, it was someone else. My coach at the time goes, which I still remember to this day, he goes, Manny, he goes, you're so lucky. And I go, why? Because a lot of fighters don't go through that their first fight. What are you talking about? He goes, back and forth. Like, he goes, that's the hardest it's ever going to be. That's cool. And I'm like, even to this day, I've had 9 or 10 fights. That was the hardest fight I've ever had. I've had fights in Bellator where I got beat up for 3 rounds, but it's just because I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, no, it was the hardest fight I've ever had. It was my first fight for sure.
Well, I can imagine, man. That's like your first of everything. Your first
Yeah.
jitters, your first I don't know, man, like your first everything. Like, how am I going to feel? What is, even just like, you know, weird things like professional athletes, even non-professional athletes, just anyone that's an athlete usually has like some type of routine. Like, I only eat this by this time. I wear gray socks instead of the black socks. You know, like all these weird things.
Yeah.
So like stepping into your first fight with only, you know, 2 months of training, like, and not even knowing you had to go through a process to get like a license. I didn't even know you had to get a process to go through a license, but like, that's crazy. So when you like add all that up, I mean, that's an obstacle, right? Like, that you had to overcome.
Yeah.
And that led you into, you know, you kind of experienced like that high, the fight or flight. You obviously have the fight, and then you pursued into, you know, your next fights. You know, I think it would be cool. I know you've touched on it in different, you know, episodes and stuff like that, but give like a quick, you know, Cliff Notes version summary of what it's really like to be a fighter and the lifestyle you're truly living. Because like you said, you maybe walked out with $75. Like, that's can't even fill a tank of gas right now, you know. Well, maybe it does, you know, but it's like $75 to put yourself through literal hell, get beat up, probably have a sore jaw the next day and be hard to chew your food.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you've never been hit in the face hard enough to not know what that's like you're lucky. You know, I've been hit in the face plenty of times where the next day I'm like, dang, dude, like, I can't chew.
Yeah, I had one fight like that. But my first fight in Bellator was like that. But to answer your question, it's definitely, it's unique. I was in a really weird, not want to say weird. I said very unique spot because I fought at heavyweight. And so our weight limit's 206 to 265.
Yeah, it's insane.
And so I was always walking around at about 235, 245. Never really had to worry about cutting, but I was also training 2 or 3 times a day. And so like I would wake up, eat breakfast. Sometimes I wouldn't even eat because I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
And you just wake up, you're like nervous the whole time. That's the one thing I kind of regret, but not really, is in my fighting career, I was always getting ready for a fight. I never had time to like just enjoy it or just learn. And right from the get-go, I was always training for a purpose. And so even later on, like when I retired, even though I haven't officially retired, I'm pretty much retired. People would always be like, go do jiu-jitsu tournaments or go compete. And I'm like, I'm used to getting paid to compete. I don't want to pay an entry
go
fee.
compete.
Like, it's weird. But yeah, no, you wake up, you eat breakfast, you go to train. Like I remember very specifically my very last fight with Bellator, I would wake up, I would eat, I'd go to strength and conditioning from 9 to 10. 3 days a week, I would go with John Walker, J-Walk. I'd go with him 3 days a week with like Uriah Hall and Kelvin Gastelum and Tony Ferguson. And it was like a really unique group of guys. Johnny Tsunami, my boy, we would all go at the same time. We'd all go train together. And we would go and then we'd show up back. That was in Irvine. And then Tuesday, Thursdays, we would train with Riley Ross at the training lab. Or me and Johnny would. So we'd be at the training lab. That's when the training lab was inside of Rain Training Center. So I was at Mark Munoz's gym in Lake Forest. Then we would go to practice. So it was 8:30 to 10 was strength and conditioning. We would have practice at 10 o'clock. I'd always show up at 10:10, 10:15. 10 to about 12:30 was pro class. If you didn't have a job, you would go home, eat, come back in the evening. I had to go back and coach because I was the kids boxing coach and the adult conditioning coach for kickboxing, cardio kickboxing classes. So I went back to go teach twice a week.
Dang.
And then after that, I would either hit mitts with my boxing coach with Danny Perez, or I would do a jiu-jitsu class or do another strength and conditioning class with Krzysztof Shasinski. Like there's always something to do. So you just did something, and every day you're doing that, you know. And then at one point in time, I got a job, so I would go to strength and conditioning. I would go to pro class, and then I would go work from 1 to 10 at night. And then I just come home, go to sleep, and do it all over again.
I think there's something that I don't know what it is or what causes it, but to have that mentality and to be able to truly live like the fighter lifestyle, I don't think people understand what that is, you know, unless they've seen it like on a movie or something like that. I mean, I don't understand it. So like, I love talking to the guys in the gym and stuff like that have fought pro or are currently, you know, building to fight pro. And it's like, dude, you guys are nuts. Like in the best way possible. But like, you have to be a different human to want to make that your life. Like what was it for you? What was your why that we keep talking about?
I think for me was I really thought that was going to be my outlet to provide a better life for my family.
Okay.
Like I was like, well, I'm in Bellator now, I'm making decent money. Like I'm gonna make it. Like I'm really gonna be able to provide and kind of live out my dream. But I think that was obviously a really, really big part of my why. But excuse me, there's also guys like Mark Munoz, you know, like taking me in and a lot of people don't know this, but when I first went to Reign, he had just started it.
Okay.
And he was teaching wrestling class. And I text, I think it might have been MySpace. I messaged a buddy of mine, Roger Shippen, who's now overseas training and getting ready for fights and stuff. But I messaged him and he goes, yeah, bro, we need big guys in here. And we're talking back and forth. He goes, just show up to the gym and talk to Mark. So I reached out to Mark on social media. And I go, hey, man, I'm getting ready for a fight. I don't have anywhere to train. Can I come talk to you? And he goes, yeah, man, come on by.
That's cool.
He was in the middle of coaching his class. And if you guys don't know Mark Munoz, he's a D1 national champion in Oklahoma State. He's one of the best wrestling coaches, wrestlers in MMA history. Just super talented guy, super nice guy. So that was like his bread and butter was wrestling. And so for him to put someone else in charge, to take time to talk to someone that he doesn't know. I'd never met the guy. Actually, I think we had trained one time at another gym together, but I never met the guy. Really didn't really know he didn't know who I was, and so he takes time and took an hour and a half to sit down and talk to me while someone else taught his class.
That's cool.
People were there to learn from Mark Munoz, not from whoever else he put in charge.
Yeah.
And so for him to do that and then tell me, like, Uriah Faber was that person for him that like introduced him to MMA and let him train at his gym and didn't charge him. So Mark goes, I'll let you train here for free. The only thing I ask is that you take advantage of it in the best way possible. He goes, come in every day, work hard, don't miss a day, and be a good teammate. And I was like, wow, like really? And so from day one, I admired him and then always like being, I guess, like a rookie in my faith at the time.
Yeah.
To have someone like that was so, a lot of people say they're Christian and go to church on Sundays. Like he walked the walk. Like whatever you saw on TV, that's how he was in real life.
That's awesome.
It was never like another persona or someone else. Like that's who he was all the time. And so to see that right from the get-go and to have someone like that take me in, he's another guy that I can really like. I mean, he's been on the podcast twice already. Yeah. You know, he's one dude that I can literally call at any time, and he'll just be like, "Hey, man, like, what's up? What do you need? Yeah. How can I help?"
That's super cool. Yeah. He was like a person to be able to help you kind of continue to navigate and and keep that passion for what you're doing. That's super cool. That's something that, you know, you don't find genuine people like that as much anymore, and it's freaking
hard,
sad,
especially
and it's unfortunate.
in that sport.
Yeah, because it's like when we were talking to Michael about like everyone's looking out for themselves. That sport, it's the same way, or
you almost have to.
you know, or like fighters taking advantage of coaches, or coaches taking advantage of fighters, managers taking advantage of all of them, and then the gym owner's like, well, wait a second, where's my cut? You know, you're using my gym, and it's like everyone's always looking out for themselves. So when you find someone willing to essentially like put their money where their mouth is, like that's refreshing. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, man, I'm like, whatever led you to the point where you knew you wanted to start a podcast. Like, I'm thankful for it. I think, we talk about it and stuff, like, you have a really cool perspective on something, because to be a professional athlete is one thing. To be a professional fighter, in my opinion, is like, it's a different ball game. Because again, like, you're not, unless you're like one of the top dogs, you're not living a glamorous life. You're torturing yourself for something that you just are so passionate about and that you love, for what? The simple fact of the love of the game, right?
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the athletes now, it's like, oh, I'm not playing if they don't pay me $100 million. You're like, what happened to the love of I mean, don't get me wrong, like, make your money. Everyone wants to make money, but like, fighters, I feel like they really embody what it means to, like, love the craft, love your sport. And
I think because there's always so much to learn.
Yeah.
You're never, especially like in boxing, say this guy has a killer jab. Well, there's still a left hook, an uppercut, combination, overhand right. There's still footwork, head move. There's so much to learn that and you want to keep getting better.
Yeah.
Then when you, but not only that, you also want to make your team proud and your coaches proud and the people that support you. So you have all this juice behind you. And
so
all
you
this
have something to
support.
fight for.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah. And it's just like I know Dana White always says it, it's in our DNA. Like, it really is. If you look back, fighting has always been maybe not looked at as entertaining or as entertainment.
Well, kind of, if you go back all the way to, like, gladiators.
Yeah.
And even before,
but it's hey, let's how are we gonna settle this?
You
took vegetation from my plantation. I not plantation from my land. It's let's fight or let's shoot. It's always been there, and so I think to be able to impose your will on someone and then put technique behind it.
Yeah.
Is there something special about that? But the art itself is I think, in my opinion, is to always keep learning. And if you can take that into other aspects of your life, whether it's family or business, like you and I both have kids. Mm-hmm. There's they try to make these parenting books, but that's not accurate to how it really is. There's no real perfect way to parent. And so, but if you take that same discipline that you learned in the military and you apply it to your efforts and how you're going to be represented and how you want to grow as a person, I think it takes you a long way, because you not only is that instilled in you, you can learn it.
Yeah.
100%. And I think going through that is fun. Like, I want to compete again, and I think now, maybe being smart it wouldn't be the smartest thing to go fight again. Maybe, I mean, you never say never.
Yeah.
But I think now competing with like other podcasts.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, like, oh, I want to be the best, and we've talked about it before, I just want to be transparent, like, be honest with you guys, a big part of me is like, oh no, it has to look a certain way and it has to have a certain feel. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not real sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I want that realness, like what you talk about, that rawness, that realness. I want our audience to grow with us. I want people that support us to kind of not be with us from the beginning, because I'll always accept a new listener. Yeah. But
you want them to be a part of our, like, our DNA, like our culture. Like, we want to build a culture.
100%.
And it's not. I don't want to sound cheesy or lame, but it's a fighter's culture, because every single one of us in life has a fight, and it can be as simple as a fight to just get up in the morning, go to a job, leave that job, do whatever it is. We all have a literal fight within inside of us that we need to conquer it. And those of us that conquer it, awesome. Those of us that don't, unfortunately, not everyone is a fighter. So,
but it's like you talk about it all the time, and I know we've talked about it off air. Is like a big part of why I wanted to do it is like everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And so it's like you were mentioning, it is fighters, but it's also like I want people to learn something.
Yeah.
If there's gonna be consequences to your actions, like it's not. I don't want people just to be like, oh, if you don't go to work this day, if it's a struggle for you to get up, like, great. Everyone has a struggle sometimes, but like, I want to know, like what can we do? I think it's our job to get that out of people. Like, oh, like, what did you do? You didn't want to get out of bed today.
Yeah.
But how'd you get your butt up and to go to that job? Like, I have that feeling sometimes.
I have it all the time.
Like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to do this. But then
it's
think
giving
you think
that
about your why. And then it helps motivate you to go out and go do those things.
I'd say it's just giving that little bit of like a glimmering blink of like hope. Like something to be able to spark someone listening, someone watching. 100%. Even within us talking back and forth or some of the guests we've interviewed, it's like this stuff is like, it's reigniting a fire inside of me that I'm like, I'm like gun-ho right now. I'm like, let's go, you know, like, and it's just like the little glimmer of hope. And I think, especially in today's climate and culture, like we can all use that, you know? So like if we can provide some sense of like relief or a smile or inspiration or hope, or again, like referring back to like grittiness, like if we can provide some grittiness to somebody just by listening to people's stories, like I consider that success.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I think when people get real, and I think when they're honest, I think they're more relatable, no matter who's sitting in this guest chair. Yeah. Whether it's some big time celebrity, some local person. And again, everyone has a story to tell, but I think the way they tell it and their experience through some of everyone's life failures that we all might have in common, I think their perspective can help a listener, can help someone, you know, going through a difficult time where maybe they don't have an answer, they haven't tried to kind of get over that hump doing what this guest said, you know? And so I'm stoked, man. I'm excited to see where we go. And like I mentioned our first episode together, like I hope that I teach you something. I want to learn from you. And I'm just really excited, you know? Same here.
And, you know, it's like just being able to do this together. And like I legitimately loved hearing like how you started. Like I've heard different pieces of you talking about it, but just being able to kind of sit here and listen is like, that's cool. Like you're crazy, but that's cool. So being able to just like sit here and listen to that, like I thank you for sharing. We want you guys to continue to hear from us and just get to know who we are, you know, and that's the goal for things. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for being the guest.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
But yeah, awesome.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for watching, guys. I mean, just really appreciate you guys. And I can't say it enough. The growth and the support, you know, I see it. And I'm just stoked to what's ahead and stoked for this new year and what it's going to give us. So you guys just stay motivated, keep fighting, and remember that everything was impossible until someone did it. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Kingdom Nutrition. Make sure you guys go and visit their site over at kingdomnutrition.com and enter promo code MFW10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Kingdom Nutrition carries the best sports supplements on the market. They manufacture and curate their own line of supplements with the highest quality ingredients, including a lean protein, weight gainer protein, pre-workout, BCAAs, and an array of other products. They've recently created the world's first vegan chickpea protein, and it tastes amazing. I'm a big dude. I like food, and I like chocolate. So when they told me it comes in chocolate and vanilla, I got really happy. But if you're a workout enthusiast and you want to change up your diet, change up your protein, go check out their vanilla chickpea protein. It mixes well with anything. It'll blend great with a smoothie. So to get your hands on any of these products, just make sure and go visit kingdomnutrition.com. Remember to enter promo code MFW10 and get 10% off your next purchase. Let's go.